The NBA yesterday released their second return of fan voting for the All-Star game. And the Western Conference votes got my attention more so than the East. I was just more interested in the West when it came to who the fans were voting for. So I look at the list. I'll say for the guards, the top two vote getters are SGA and Stephen Curry. SGA has a sizable lead on Stephen Curry, so he's definitely going to get in for sure when it comes to fan votes. Curry's lead over Doncic is not by too much. It's only by around a little bit less than 25,000 vote gap between the two. So Doncic could possibly make up the gap. It's very possible he could overtake Curry for that spot. Then you look at the front court votes. Nikola Jokic has the most votes for the front court and overall for the Western Conference. I have to say, well deserved. Can't argue against that selection by the fans so far. He's definitely probably going to keep that margin when it comes to being the vote getter for the number one vote getter for the front court positions. Kevin Durant has about a little bit over 1.9 million. Same with LeBron, a little bit over 1.9 million votes apiece. And then you have Victor after them, who just loses out on one of these three front court spots at just a little bit over 1.6 million. So he's trailing Durant and LeBron James by 300 some thousand votes. Now, I have no issues with Jokic getting voted in there. He's definitely deserving. There's just no argument there. But I do have some qualms about Durant and LeBron being voted in as a starter over Victor Wembanyama. I feel Victor has been better than both of them this year. And some of you guys might say, like, well, this guy's crazy. How could he say Victor's better than both LeBron James and Kevin Durant? And I say he's better than them because I live in the present, and the people who think those two are better than him right now live in the past. That's what I'll say. Yeah, several years ago, those guys would be automatically better than Victor, but Victor this year has been better than them. And the reason I say this is because, first off, the record of the Spurs is better than Durant's Suns, so automatically is a better record than Kevin Durant's Suns. LeBron James' Lakers are slightly better, but they're not that far ahead, only a few games ahead of the Spurs in the Western Conference. So they're only a few games ahead of the Spurs in the Western Conference, which is not much. And you think LeBron would have been able to win more games with the Lakers since his second best player, I should say second best player, because to me, honestly, Anthony Davis is the best player on the Lakers. But I'll say the best player on his team, Anthony Davis, is easily better than the best player on Victor's team outside of Victor. You can make the argument Chris Paul is the second best player on the Spurs, and he's like 40 years old. So what does that tell you? And despite that, the Spurs are only a few games behind the Lakers. Despite LeBron having a legit superstar teammate, Anthony Davis, he's not winning more games with the Lakers. And the other reason I'll say Victor is more deserving of these two guys is because his numbers show that he is. So I would say Durant and LeBron are shooting a little bit higher percentages overall from the field. It's a little bit higher, but it's not by much. But the kicker to me is that Victor is scoring as much points per game as both of these guys. You look at his numbers, he's averaging 25.1 points per game. And LeBron is averaging 23.7, I believe. Yup, 23.7. And Kevin Durant, let me look up his numbers. Kevin Durant is averaging 27.2. So Durant is only averaging about 2 more points than Victor. Now, when you compare Victor to these guys, you could say they're better at scoring efficiently than Victor right now, but that's not to me the tiebreaker here. The tiebreaker is that Victor is so much better than them on defense. It's not even close. I feel both of these guys are average to below average defenders on defense. LeBron, to me, is a below average defender now. He's just not even doing anything on defense. And Kevin Durant, at his old age, is maybe average at best, but he doesn't really look good on defense at all. Hence why the Suns are struggling. That their defense is just not as good as Victor. Victor's defense is arguably top-notch, maybe the best in the league. This is why he's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. Keep in mind, the Spurs 2 years ago were the worst defensive team in the league. This year, they are, when I look at their numbers, they are ranked number 12th in defense. That's a huge jump, a huge quantum leap from what they were 2 years ago. And so I think that to me is the tiebreaker between Victor, LeBron, and Durant. His scoring is just as good as them. They're only slightly more efficient, but then when you add the defensive part into the game, when factoring all three of these guys, that's when he clearly edges them out. It clearly puts him on another level compared to these two guys today in the present. So that's why he should get into the All-Star game as a starter and not as a reserve, because I think he's worthy of it. His team, like I said, has a better record than Kevin Durant's Suns, and his team is not far behind the Lakers, despite not having as good of a teammate as LeBron does in Anthony Davis. He doesn't have a teammate just as good as LeBron in that regard, and he's still doing just as well. He's almost as successful when it comes to winning games. So my final reason why he should be over either of these two guys is that Victor is for the fans. He is an exciting player. He's one of those guys where you actually want to look at his highlights if you missed the game to see that one exciting highlight he had in the game, whether it's on the offensive end or on the defensive end. You want to see that. You really want to see that. Every day, like after Spurs play a game, if I didn't see it, I will check the highlights to see what I missed, just to see the incredible stuff Victor's doing on both ends of the court. I don't think there's really any other player like that currently in the league. Maybe a few others you want to see, but Victor is must-see TV on both ends. Whereas I don't think there's any player in the league that's must-see TV on both ends. You have guys on the offensive end that are must-see TV, like Jokic. You could say Ja Morant, Anthony Edwards, when they get it going, those types of guys. But defensively, I can't name a guy. I feel Victor covers both ends of the court, which is what the All-Star game is meant for. This guy would be exciting to watch. And I actually would like to see Victor paired up with Jokic in the starting lineup. That to me would be fun. Seeing both those guys together, how they play together, that would be very cool to watch. It would take me back in the day when I would see Duncan, Shaq, and Garnett play at the same time during the All-Star game. So I feel like we need to see it. The All-Star game is lacking that type of excitement like we got back in the day when certain guys got to play with each other. It was fun. So I want to see that in the starting lineup. I want to see that starting lineup, but it's probably not going to happen. But Victor does deserve to be a starter over either one of those two guys. That's the way I look at it. It probably won't happen this year because he doesn't have enough fan voting in his column to do it. But I think next year he might break the barrier. He's almost there. He's starting to get more known. He will be well known after the season, I think, by casual fans that next year he'll probably be voted in as a starter. So that'll be entertaining next year. But I still hold out hope we'll get to see him as a starter. Who knows? Maybe he'll get a voting surge. Probably not. But that's just my point, that Victor should be starting over either LeBron or Durant. And just I think lastly, the NBA needs just a changing of the guard. We have seen these old guard guys for the last 10, 15 years. I feel that they've had their time, and it's just time for a new era. And that also starts with the All-Star game. That's just my opinion, my final closing argument. And yeah, that's all I have to say.